the Australian Christian Lobby has today defended a post on its website which many say likened gay marriage to Nazi atrocities.
The cowardice and weakness of Australia's gatekeepers is causing unthinkable things to happen, just as unthinkable things happened in Germany in the 1930s. These are some of the final words of a blog post by ACL director Lyle Shelton. Earlier in the post, he claims changing the definition of marriage and teaching our kids their gender is fluid should be opposed, as it's stuff like this that's weakening our moral compass.
Australians know that these sorts of remarks are completely unnecessary and will have a really negative impact on gay and lesbian people.
Members of Australia's Jewish community have also criticised the post.
It belittles the atrocities and the extermination of 6 million Jews and millions of others, and it insults the memory of the victims and the survivors.
Shelton's post also slams the Safe Schools program and says it teaches kids that only you can know if you're a boy or a girl. No one can tell you. This is actually a direct quote from a children's book that's entirely unrelated to Safe Schools.
When I wrote The Gender Fairy, I wrote it for my son who's transgender. People like Lyle Shelton have used it against Safe Schools, saying that it's a Safe Schools resource, which it's clearly not. When you hear our children being compared to Hitler, you have to think, how much lower can this go?
I think our language has strong enough words to criticise a position or a policy such as marriage equality or the Safe Schools program without debasing the historical record and without smearing the LGBTI community, who, by the way, were the victims of Hitler's regime.
And we spoke to Lyle Shelton earlier today. Well, Lyle, welcome to the program. Now, it's not surprising that many gay people are offended by your comments today, but much of the Jewish community is extremely offended as well.
Well, I can't understand why people would be offended, Carrie. I wasn't in any way saying that same-sex marriage or anything or safe schools was like the Holocaust. What I'm saying is that at the moment we've got some bad ideas being put forward in public policy, telling young people, children as young as 4 in our schools, that no one can tell you what gender you are through this Gender Fairy publication from the Safe Schools Coalition. And I think people would be wondering how these things could get purchase and currency in our society and why no one's saying anything about it. And of course, that's what happened in the 1930s in Germany. So the parallel is between speaking up or not speaking up when bad ideas are put forward in public policy. So it's no offence to anyone at all.
Well, apparently it is of offence though, Lyle, but there are so many things you just said to try to pick up there. I don't really know where to start. Let's start with your words. How is it not a parallel that you're drawing or not a comparison that you're drawing when you say that the cowardice and weakness of Australia's gatekeepers is causing unthinkable things to happen, just as unthinkable things happened in Germany in the 1930s?
Well, the parallel relates to people speaking up about bad ideas. And if you follow our work, Waleed, you'd know that we often speak about people like William Wilberforce as well, who spoke up against the slave trade. And one of the things that we say at ACL is we've got to speak up when we see bad ideas being put forward in public policy. And the idea that children as young as 4 should be told that their gender is fluid, I think doesn't really pass the test with most parents in Australia. They'd be very concerned about that being taught and being funded by the federal government, as Bill Shorten plans to do if he becomes Prime Minister. So I think that's why I'm speaking up against this. Yeah. No,
let me pick up there because you've mentioned it a couple of times. That book that you have in your hand, you have described as being done by the Safe Schools Coalition. That's just a factual inaccuracy. I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
It is. I can tell you. We've actually heard from the woman who wrote it. In fact, we just heard from her before. She says it has nothing to do with Safe Schools Coalition. The only thing, the closest link you have is that someone who was part of the Safe Schools Coalition gave a quote for that book. But it's not part of the Safe Schools program or an official product of the Safe Schools Coalition at all. Why are you introducing that?
That's actually not true, Waleed. This book, The Gender Fairy, is promoted by Safe Schools through their resources, and it encourages schools to stock this in their library. And it's a resource for 4-year-olds, and it says only you know whether you are a boy or a girl.
Could you give me the reference to that?
Yeah.
We've been able to find it.
Be very happy to send it to you, Waleed.
Lyle, it sounds like a lot of your argument centres on that book being part of the Safe Schools Coalition. I would appreciate it if you could send through a reference to that, because we have not been able to find it. So if you could please do that, and we'll see what we can do to clarify that and share that with our viewers. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Pleasure. Thanks very much for having us.
That was great promotion for the gender fairy. Lyle held it up about 6 times.
Almost needed the hand underneath. Like,
I don't know what the recommended retail price is, but I can see the logo. We did hear from Lyle since we did that interview. He sent us a link, so see what you make of this. He sent us a link to the Safe Schools website. That website featured a news article about the gender fairy. So we questioned Safe Schools themselves, and they told us this. The gender fairy is not a Safe Schools resource, nor was it funded by us. All official SSCA resources are housed on the Safe Schools hub. So they're saying it's not a resource. Now, SSCA, they go on and say, will sometimes recommend books, such as The Gender Fairy, to schools to assist them in having conversations with families, children and young people about sexuality and gender diversity to help create safer and more inclusive learning environments. So make of that what you will.
It kind of feels a little like Lyle thinks that if someone's exposed to that literature, they'll suddenly decide to become transgender. I don't think it's that easy.
no?
No, no.
Oh.
No. Lucky I'm here to educate you, Carrie.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
wouldn't know, I wasn't exposed. We're going to go to a break. We'll be back with more soon.